I want to be really clear. It was hard. I did the hard work to show up, but I tattooed my body with heroic, dude. And there were moments there where I'm like, what did you do, man? Like it was potentially catastrophic. And the metaphor was, we're on Everest, huge storm. People got blown off the mountain. Supplies were gone. What are we going to do? I nearly wept more than once. I mean, it was hard. And yet I practiced the philosophy I harder than ever. There was no going off the rails for me. Again, at the risk of being a modest personal confidence that I can handle whatever life throws at me. Anything that comes up, there'll be harder personal things, losing people and all those things, but whatever, dude. Like, nothing is going to be harder than that.
You are listening to the new man beyond the Macho Jerk and the new Age Wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Do you ever feel like you're playing the wrong game in life? Are you overwhelmed by all the personal growth stuff you, quote, should be doing? And if you checked all the boxes, would life be easy? Heroic CEO and app creator Brian Johnson is back to discuss his new book, Arete, Activate Your Heroic Potential. Since we last spoke, a lot has happened, including a challenge that nearly sank his business, along with millions of dollars just a few days before their product launch. Today, we dive into what he calls the ultimate game. We learn how our daily choices invite the circus to town, and we hear about the impact of putting his protocol into practice. Here he is. How you doing,
right
man?
Early on a Monday morning. Like, who got into my 8:30 a.m. on Monday? Only one guy can do that. Tripp Lanier, what's up, brother?
I thought, aren't you like a 4:30 guy? I figured like this is lunchtime for you.
Yeah. I never schedule anything before 10. So stoked that we are connecting and excited to see you, dude.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, dude. Hour of meditation this morning, going deep.
Right on, man. Well, great to be back. Great to be back in the saddle with you, man. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, brother. Always have great chats. We were talking before our chats. So many people reached out to me and said, wow, that was such a great chat you had with Tripp. So I'm looking forward to another one.
All right. So the shirt, Arete, let's approach this as if somebody's never heard of you. Somebody's never heard of Arete. They're not familiar with heroic. Because the book that you've got coming out, Arete, is just it's going to impact a lot of people, and it's going to be probably the first time that people hear about your work and everything you got going on. So let's just start floor level. What is Arete? That's a word that a lot of us haven't heard before.
Yeah, which in itself is kind of an interesting reflection on our cultural norms and all good stuff. But Arete is the one-word summation of my life's work, my philosophy. It's also the one-word answer that Aristotle would give us if we asked him how to live a great life. It's what the ancient Greeks, the ancient Stoics talked about. The word translates as virtue or excellence, but it has a deeper meaning, something closer to striving to be. I've got my 1,000-second timer going off, which is giving me the opportunity to make sure I'm moving. If I was sitting working,
let's do some push-ups or something. Let's do it.
Literally, I'm a little behind on my burpees this morning, so that would have been the cue, the trigger, the prompt to go bang out 11 more burpees. But anyway, Arete, we translate it as virtue or excellence, but it has a deeper meaning, something closer to expressing the best version of yourself moment to moment to moment. Now, when we live with Arete, we experience what Aristotle calls the summum bonum, the greatest good of life, which the word they use in ancient Greece is eudaimonia, which means good soul. We weakly translate that into English as happiness, but it means something closer to flourishing. So when I like to say, close the gap. So I draw two lines. This is obviously just audio, but I draw, a line with my hand parallel to the ground at eye level. And I say, look, if you're capable of being this in any given moment, and there's a gap, and now I got my other hand coming in a foot below that line, and there's a gap between who you could have been and who you are actually being in any given moment. It's in that gap in which regret, anxiety, disillusionment, depression, it's more nuanced than that, but it's in that gap in which those things exist. You close the gap, you actually show up as the best version of yourself in that moment. No one's going to do it perfectly, but more and more consistently, then you're living with Arete. And there's no room for all the negative stuff in that moment. You experience a deep sense of joy, eudaimonia, et cetera. So that's the now long answer to your short question of what Arete is.
It's good. It's good. I want to come back to the best self because I think in our culture, we are given a version or an idealized version of the guy that's successful. He's thin. He's got the girl. He's got the title. That's what a lot of us think the best version of ourselves is. And so how do we approach the best version of ourselves where it's not this kind of idealized version or this kind of superficial version?
Dude, again, goosebumps, getting right in. Objective 1 of the book of our coaching program of everything I do. Objective 1 is you got to know the ultimate game. So we've been seduced to play that game that you just described. It's extrinsic motivation. The way I describe it is it's hey, if you want to be happy and fulfilled, then you need to go for fame, wealth, and hotness. Mm-hmm. And if you aren't succeeding in that, then you're just not winning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really important though. And I have goosebumps again. And I know that we're so aligned on this, but you got to know the ultimate game. So the ultimate game, we already talked about briefly. Aristotle tells us it's to be your best self in the true virtuous sense of the word. And scientists call that intrinsic motivation. So even if you're successfully pursuing extrinsic stuff, fame, wealth, and hotness, meaning you have all the Instagram followers, all the square footage you ever wanted in your house, right? Even if you're successfully getting those things, you are less, quote, psychologically stable. And that phrase always moves me. You're less psychologically stable than people who know the real game, which is, no. Become a better person, deepen your personal relationships with your friends and family and community, and make a contribution to the world, however modestly. Those things, science says, are unequivocally how you create a life of deep meaning and purpose. Now, of course, we've been seduced to play the game that you just described, fame, wealth, hotness, but we got to step back half an inch and realize, oh, wait, I was playing the wrong game. Stephen Covey 20, 30 years ago said, it's like getting to the top of a ladder and realizing you put it against the wrong wall. David Brooks, second mountain, same thing. You get to the top of the first mountain and you're like, yeah, I made it. Well, wait, this is it? Like, this is what I've been working so hard for? It's the second mountain in which we embrace these ideas and realize that the ultimate game we've been seduced to play was the wrong one. Then you get excited. Then you realize, oh, all right, I'm going to focus on these things and create the freedom, the aliveness, the love, the peace that you talk about, activating your heroic potential in service to your family and community the way we frame it up. Again, long answer to your short question, but getting me fired up already. Like that's absolutely it. And we got to start there. Because if you don't do that, then you're heading in the wrong direction. And the more successful you are, the faster you go in the wrong direction, the further you get from where you actually want to be.
Yeah. I want to come back to that phrase, psychologically unstable. Is that, or we're pointing to instability psychologically, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we know if that's us? Because a lot of times we're just kind of looking in the mirror. We're looking at we're checking the box. Hey, I've got the money. I've got the status. I'm important. Hey, I must be doing all right. But I may not be paying much attention to my internal experience, that psychological stability. So what does psychological instability look like from what you're talking about? How do we know?
Well, we all experience it. I mean, it's the enervation, the burnout, the overwhelm, the meh, really, this is it. And then 80% of us, are experiencing some level of anxiety, depression, disillusionment, mental angst and challenge. So I think the felt sense is there for most of us. And again, I have it, you have it, we all have it at times. And it's not about getting rid of all extrinsic motivation. And there's nothing wrong with fame, wealth, and hotness per se. But you want to know what the game is you're predominantly playing. We don't need to go to 100% Gandhi on it and strip down to a loincloth and that's all we do and that's what we do now. Like, that
what do you think I'm wearing underneath this, man?
Well, you and I both. Let's go. We can strip down right now.
Me, you, and Ted Nugent. We're in our loincloth.
Let's go. But all of us are experiencing that on one level or another. Now, for some of us, it's catastrophic or potentially nearly catastrophic. Perhaps we're binge drinking or eating or watching Netflix. Those would be indicators that you're feeling that and you're trying to numb yourself from an underlying pain that you don't know how to describe it. So again, stepping back a half an inch and just seeing, wow, I've been seduced to play that game and how's that working for me? It's not quite it. There's that angst of I'm capable of more. Mm-hmm. What is it? And I've found that getting that distinction locked in, then we can talk about how you can go about winning the ultimate game and playing that one well and experiencing a lot more joy in the process, more psychological stability, less joyless urgency is another phrase I picked up recently. Joyless urgency. We're just chasing things, including the eudaimonic stuff, that I want to be my best self, but you can do that joylessly. So again, how do we bring more, again, freedom, aliveness, love, peace? It's those are synonyms to what we're talking about here with joy and flourishing.
I like that we're bringing this up because I think for a lot of folks, we can get up in our head about this stuff. But if I say things like meh or depressing or overwhelm or anxiety, it's like, well, yeah, that I do have that. And maybe I've been thinking I need to double down and do this stuff more. I'm not doing enough. And what you're proposing is like, wait a second, there's another game, there's another mountain, there's another flap on the menu here, and we can take a look at that instead of investing even more of our time and energy, which we won't get back into a game. That's not the ultimate game.
Yep. Yeah. And that's not going to be easy, but then you put the proper amount of effort into the proper game. And then you experience the deep, meaningful, sustainable gains of living a good life in an appropriate manner, but it isn't that it's easy. It's just that, you're playing the wrong game. Then you've been taught, by the way, that it should be easy. So now you're going after all the fame, wealth, and hotness. And then whenever you face a challenge, something must be wrong with you, which is subjective too, as you know in the book. It's no. Rule number one is it's supposed to be hard. So know that you're supposed to face challenges. Nothing's wrong with you because you're experiencing whatever it is you're experiencing. But yeah, fully aligned.
Okay. One of the things that gets mentioned a lot, it's even the subtitle for the book, Activate Your Heroic Potential. Let's talk about potential a bit, because I can think back to my early days of a personal development jackass that you called me early on.
I think you called me that.
No, you called me that. It's recorded, and you were right. You were totally right. But
No, I wasn't. No. Just to be fair here, and play that back for me when we trade some text today. My recollection is I loved that phrase. I thought you coined it, and maybe it was in the context of a conversation we had, of course, but I thought we were talking about that version of both of us and all of us when we're on that track.
Yes.
Hilarious. Okay, cool.
Yes. Yeah. We're on the same page there. It's that part of us that, and this is what happened to me. This will happen to me. And I wonder how you have done this, how you've navigated this, because I read a book. Wow, I get excited. Of course, these ideas make sense and I want to integrate them. And that becomes part of this idea that I have about my potential. And then I read another book, or I listen to another podcast, or I listen to another thing, and it just keeps stacking up. And this idea of my potential keeps getting larger and further out of reach, where it suddenly becomes overwhelming. It's no longer inspiring. It becomes this, oh my God, I'm a piece of crap. I'm not living up to my potential. Every book I read, every podcast I listen to is helping me feel further away from who I think I, quote, should be. And so as someone who's read gazillions of books and documented all these great ideas, how did you navigate all of that without it screwing up your sense of potential? And then we'll get into what you mean by potential in your book.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I went through the same thing that you went through. So I think part of cultivating wisdom is to realize the constraints of our reality. And, the opposite of wisdom is being foolish. So, you can bury your head in the sand and you can not even think about these things, or you can go manic on it and try to do everything that you possibly can. But both sides of that virtue of wisdom are vices of deficiency and excess. You can be foolish in wanting it too much and not embracing the constraints of reality. So this, as I alluded to briefly, this is one of the big challenges of self-development, is to bring joy to the process. But I would argue, for me anyway, my experience of suffering came when my time horizons were wrong. So what I'm suggesting with Arete is it's in the moment.
What does that mean?
It's so I'm going to walk that out. So there's this moment in which I can be my best self or not. Then there's where I think I should already be. So I look back and I'm like, dude, I've been such an idiot. I have not shown up the way I should. And I'm now I'm 49 years old. I can't believe that I haven't done this and this and this because that person's done that and that and that. And I hate myself. That's the wrong horizon. And then in this moment, what do? I don't close the gap. I go drink. I don't drink, but I would go drink or watch, Netflix, or go do whatever I'm going to do to numb myself, yell at my kids or whatever, because my time horizon's wrong. I'm looking back and saying I'm not enough yet. and I should have already achieved all the things. And I'm ignoring this moment, which is the only moment in which we can show up as our best self. And I'm talking potential right this moment, right this moment, right this moment, right this moment. If you string enough of those together, that big opportunity that you have to grow into your best self becomes more, not necessarily, well, more likely. But then to go to the other horizon, there's the looking forward and feeling such a huge gap between where you are and where you want to be that you just give up again. And again, you forget that this is the moment to put on your socks, John Wooden style. And that's exciting for me. And the way I'm trying to frame it up is redefining what it means to be a hero. As you know, the word means protector. It's not guy with million Instagram followers or whatever. So redefining that we can all be the hero we've been waiting for, but then it's this moment in which we close the gap, express the best version of ourselves, that we are heroic. You don't need to wait until you're a best-selling author. You don't need to wait until you're on Oprah. You don't need to wait until you've checked everything off your bucket list. We've all felt that. We've all felt the moments in which we've shown up powerfully. We've strung together a few days of actually doing some things we do and we're at our best. And I think that's an important distinction. Again, longer chat with nuances both ways. But when I felt overwhelmed and just wanted to give up, and then you go nihilist on it, by the way.
Yeah.
Then you say, screw it. Everyone who's into that is an idiot. And then we get really weird with our ambition. We see everybody else who's doing those things as something must be wrong with them. Oh, what, do they got an unhealthy childhood or something? They got to go embrace this ambition. And that's our own disintegrated sense of what's possible. But don't ignore the fact that, as Maslow says, what one can be, one must be. Your potential's there knocking on the door no matter what, and it's not going away. So again, you in a given day choose not to step forward into growth, and you do the thing you know you shouldn't have done, and you do the thing you know you shouldn't have done, you're going to want to numb yourself at the end of that day. So there's always that whisper of potentiality in any given moment. And we need to do the hard work to figure out how we integrate that without either giving up on everything and becoming a bit of a nihilist about it and a cynic and an overcritical person and disassociate with our ambition, or go the other way where we're burning ourselves out, not enjoying, bringing a joyless urgency to the process, kind of always chasing the next thing, but not savoring who we are, what we've done, and what we're experiencing in this moment.
My takeaway, I'm a bit more of an experiential type. So what I'm hearing in there is I've got to pay attention to what's going on in my body as I approach this stuff. If I'm feeling that overwhelm and that yuck, that sense, that's information. That's an indication that something's off and I want to take a look at it. If I'm going in the other direction and I'm feeling that yuck, I'm off. But if I'm finding my lane, then there's a bit of zest there. There's a bit of like, oh, this is fun and I can do this. But I've got to be willing to be more in my experience instead of stuck in these comparisons in my head about where I'm not and where I should be.
Dude, but then your experience, 100%, but then your felt experience, both in terms of the meh and that, God, I just want to do addictive things or whatever it is for each of us, is an indicator that your thoughts are off and almost certainly that your behaviors are off. So you want to use those sensory, sensations as, to me, cues and triggers and prompts to do some cognitive behavioral therapy on yourself and look at it and go, what thoughts do I have right now that are leading to the opposite of freedom, aliveness, love, and peace? Oh, I have the thought that I should have already been more than I am. Is that helping me? No. And then I'm also binge watching this, drinking too much, and I know I shouldn't be, or I'm spending too much time on my phone when I should be with my kids. Is that helping me experience freedom, aliveness, love, and peace? Oh, no, it's not. But I think it's an integration of the thoughts, the behaviors, and the feelings are downstream effects of disintegrated, unhealthy, unwise.
Right.
I mean, the cardinal virtue is wisdom, then discipline. You need to know the game you're playing, then you need to have the discipline to play it. And again, what happens for some, and I've been in that crowd, but not as much, is you become a nihilist about it. You're like, F it. All these fundamentals, all these things that everyone's talking about, or Brian certainly is talking all the time, those aren't important. Those don't matter as much as he's saying. And I feel more strongly about that now than I've ever felt. And there's a joy to it in the process of connecting the feelings, which again, I believe are indicators for thoughts and behaviors that can be tweaked. And then we get excited. Then you go to BJ Fogg and you realize nothing's wrong with you per se. The fact that you haven't been able to install these habit changes isn't a character flaw, he says. Perhaps it's a design flaw. And I tell a story in the book about me playing laser tag. I had no idea how to play the game and I sucked, right? It was a lot more fun when I realized how you actually shoot a laser tag. Life's a lot more fun when we realize, oh, wait. This is the ultimate game. This is how I play it well. And yeah, I feel better when I eat and I move and I sleep and I breathe and I focus my mind in certain ways. And then we can control the dials of life, not in what are we saying? Self-help jackass way or in a nihilistic way, but in a very wise, calm, confident, grounded, energized, tranquil way. But again, there's no getting around that impulse that Maslow says at a certain point. Well, I like to paraphrase Maslow, hierarchy of needs. As you satisfy certain needs, and anyone who's this far into this conversation has satisfied those basic needs. He says the need to actualize your potential and to become that which you are capable of being is as real as your need to breathe, is how I frame it up. It's soul oxygen. And if you aren't living in integrity with that, you're going to suffer. But again, it's not because you didn't do all the things you thought you should do to win the extrinsic games. It's because you're not playing the ultimate game well right now. And you can change that right now, overnight. Let's get a better night of sleep tonight. Turn off your electronics, get an extra hour of sleep tonight. You literally can change your life overnight. It is that simple. It's not easy, but it becomes a simple game that I just keep on looking at your wall behind us here. Then you feel more of the freedom, the aliveness, the love, the peace. But the avenue to do that is art.
Yeah.
It's moment to moment to moment. Am I stepping forward into my best self or not? And you know that too, to answer the implicit question there. What does that mean? I know when I'm getting impatient with my kids that isn't me being my best self. I know when I'm going to email again for the 20th time in the last 17 minutes that's probably not what I need to be doing. My old thing used to be ESPN, and I can give you 100 other things I currently still do. But then it becomes a fun game for us to close the gap more and more consistently and feel that eudaimonic joy that's a byproduct of it.
And so potential from the extrinsic motivation perspective is the stuff, the status, the fame, the significance, all of that kind of stuff. And shifting potential here in this language or to this game is more of honoring who we are on a soul level. And that's going to feel there's going to be a rub there. I noticed that when I'm working with people through this, there's this addiction to, I want the big swing, I want the big impact, I want the big thing that I'm going to, the reward. I don't want to do the small things every day. I don't want to do the little things. There's a resistance to that because they're so focused on where's the juice. And so there can be that shift. It reminds me in the Matrix when Neo wakes up and they're eating gruel, and it's kind of like he's like, F this. I want to go back to eating steak and living in the illusion kind of a thing. But it doesn't have to be gruel. I'm not going to associate that. But there is that point of like, wow, it's these little things. What about the big stuff, the big exciting things? But that becomes. It sounds like without this. Obviously, the fundamentals, that's what it means, the fundamentals. We don't have access to the bigger potential.
Yeah, and then, we like to break it down into energy, work, and love. So I want to take that ambition that one has been putting into all the extrinsic stuff that we've talked about exhaustively now, the fame, the wealth, and the hotness. And I'm not saying get rid of it. And I'm actually saying if you play the game we're talking about, you're going to get more of that. But you're going to realize that wasn't the actual game that you should be playing. Paradoxically, happy, joyful people make more money. They experience more success. So all the things that you predominantly may want now, you'll get more of when you focus on the things that actually matter. And then, bonus, you're going to feel great now. And you don't need to wait until those things happen. But I like to channel the ambition of, all right, well, who are you at your best? And soul level is cool. But even I would look at that and go, what does that mean? So then I want to break that down into practical terms. A good life comes down to two things. Freud says, one of the very few times I agree with him, work and love. If you can show up powerfully in your work and how you create, in the world and serve in the world, and your love, right? For me, it's as a husband and a father, and as a friend, and as a teacher and a leader, and all these things. Work and love. You get those two things right. Freud says that's the essence of a good life. I say yes, and if your energy sucks because of poor lifestyle choices, good luck showing up powerfully in your work or love. So let's start with energy, which science says is the number one virtue, most highly correlated with your well-being. If your vitality sucks, again, to be crass and blunt, your life sucks. So prioritize your eating, your moving, and your sleeping, and your breathing and your focusing, etc. But then let's think about who you are at your best in energy. So I'll take all that ambition that you have, and maybe you're a triathlete or an Ironman. Cool. All right, cool. But really, is that really the proper distribution of your energy, work, and love? Perhaps we need to take 10 hours of training a week out of your energy, do just enough to be dialed in without having to impress everybody with all of your outcome goals or whatever, or not, depending on the person. Bring some of that into your love, which is almost always the case for the men with whom I work. And anyone who's hyper ambitious like me, energy and work are easy for me. And for a lot of guys that are doing what we're doing at a high level, maybe there's some tweaks, but we're okay there. It's the love. It's how do you operationalize being a good husband and being a good father and doing the little things that matter. But no one's going to tell you that they prefer square footage over connection with their kids. No parent who's going through, depression and anxiety or suicidal ideation with their kids thinks that's awesome. But let's connect it to the behaviors that you've engaged in or haven't engaged in that might be contributing to that instability in your kids. And let's see if those little moments that you're giving away in the day to things that aren't that important could be brought back, and you could close the gap this evening with your wife and with your kids, or whatever the case may be for your idiosyncratic expression. And then again, this is where the freedom, the aliveness, the love, and the peace comes from. And there is that, of course, gruel trade, but you quickly learn. And Seneca talked about this 2,000 years ago. How much better to pursue a straight course, he said, where doing what is best for you is what you most enjoy. You couldn't pay me to not go to bed early. I got 9 hours of sleep last night. I'm working harder than I've ever worked. I went to bed at 7:30 after we tucked the kids in, got up at 5:30, no alarm, and I feel great. You could not pay me to stay up and watch some pseudo hero on a sports field or on a Netflix show and sacrifice that sense of joy that I have right now. So I can show up powerfully with you. So hopefully we can serve some people. And my entire life is architected around this. And the things that I used to think were chores are gifts. Me working out, the 55 burpees I've done so far, and I'm behind Tripp. My 55 burpees I've done so far, those are not chores. Oh, shit, I got to do them. It's, I know I'm going to feel alive when I'm connecting with Tripp. Let's go. And so each one of those things we're doing that used to be a pain in the butt now become the very way that we achieve the things we want in life on the important yet mundane things. Again, you get me fired up as always, but you tried to hear your thoughts.
It's good. I want to come back to a myth that I often bump into, which when folks are getting into personal development, is that if I'm doing it right, then it's easy. And I think this is a really nuanced conversation that somehow we're waiting on easy or we're waiting on easy to be the validation that we're doing it correctly or we're on the right path. And I can see so many instances in my own life, obviously in yours, where that's not been the case. And yet we're stepping into more challenge and in service of freedom, aliveness, love, and peace, and in service of eudaimonia, as you say. So let's talk about this myth that if I was doing it right, it would be easy, and kind of how to make sure we're not doing the thing just because it's hard because of whatever I need to make. There's guys that need to make life complex and hard. There's that thing going on too. So how do we kind of figure that one out?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many threads we can pull on that. There's simple versus complicated. Then there's easy versus hard. So I'd start with that differentiation. A good life is simple. I mean, it's truly simple. It's not easy to create it, but it's not that is not complicated. Again, asterisks, of course it is more complicated and more nuanced than I'm describing, but we've all experienced our best. When the exercise I do with people is pick out a piece of paper, and I'll get to it's supposed to be hard and all that stuff, but or challenging. If you get a piece of paper out, draw a line down the middle and put do on the left and don't on the right. And just think about when you were at your best. So when you were at your best, and we've all experienced peak moments and weeks and months, what were you doing? Perhaps you were eating a certain way, you were moving your body a certain way, you were prioritizing sleep, you were spending time with your family or creating in a certain way. What did you do? And then more importantly, what did you not do? Those probably weren't the moments in which you were binge, fill in the blank, drinking, eating, watching, whatever you're doing. All right, cool. Then what's the one thing? Well, so a good life is do more of the stuff you were doing when you're at your best and less of the stuff you weren't. And good news, you've already created an experience in your life in which somehow you did those things. We just need to reinstall them and then quit giving away your gains. Then you build scaffolding where you're no longer going to be so up and down. You'll still have highs and lows, but that's one way to simplify it. But before we get to that, your point is the essence of objective 2 in the book, which is forge anti-fragile confidence. And I have, fun with all caps, bold moments in the book. The first one is rule number 1 of a good, noble, heroic life is it's supposed to be hard. So we've been seduced to play the wrong game that we've already discussed, intrinsic, extrinsic. Then we've been further seduced to think that that game should be easy. So you've lost twice. You're playing the wrong game and you were told it was supposed to be easy. So again, rule number 1 is a good hero's journey. And you had a great line on this in one of our conversations. You're like, look, if you're reading a book and the hero, everything's just going great, or it's just boring and they're not doing anything of interest, would you want to continue reading that book? No. So if your life is that, and you're either not challenging yourself or you're the hero who constantly complains about all the challenges, do you want to read that book that is your life? No. Create an authentic life. Embrace the fact that it's supposed to be hard. Then use those obstacles to get stronger. So since our last chat with Heroic, I got the best opportunity to practice my philosophy ever. We got a letter from the SEC 2 days before I launched the Heroic app. Literally 2 days before, I'm ready to finally celebrate. I'm a reasonably high-strung dude before I give big talks. I was giving a big talk to launch our app. I told Alexandra, my wife, on what was it? Wednesday night, I think, Thursday night, I'm ready. I'm going to enjoy this talk, right? And then the next morning, my team's out at our house. I get a delivery from the UPS dude. Hey, what's up? Made out to Heroic legal department. I'm like, we don't have a legal department. Zip, the SEC, right? I'm pretty sure that's not a winning combination. Legal department and SEC, right? In that moment, literally Epictetus comes to mind. He says, when life challenges you, see it as an opportunity given to you by the gods to get stronger. Imagine, he said, like you're an Olympic wrestler and God gave you a strong wrestler to make you Olympic caliber material. So for me, that challenge, I don't reject challenges. I'm trying to do things that are hard. We're going on Everest, me and you and everybody on this call. You don't expect easy. That's the whole point. It's supposed to be hard. The weather's supposed to suck at times. But the question is, what do you do when life kicks you like that? So for me, I double down, triple down on my fundamentals. And I literally, that thing that would have crushed the old me, challenged the bliss out of the new me, right? But I used it as an opportunity to get stronger, which is a longer chat on how to forge anti-fragile confidence, where you have what it takes to meet whatever life throws at you. And I have found nothing more powerful in my own personal transformation than the algorithm that Phil Stutz, with whom we've both worked, taught me, that I've operationalized in my own way. The worse you feel, the more committed you are to your protocol. The worse you feel, the more committed you are. Whereas most people, when life challenges them, and I'm sharing it in this context because the main obstacle to doing this is it shouldn't be happening. So this challenge in my relationship with my kids, at work, with my health, shouldn't be happening. That's a great way to suffer. What if you radically accept it, art of acquiescence, stoic style, and say, well, it should be happening because it is happening. Now, rather than spiral out into vicious behavior, I'm going to have the wisdom and the discipline to work my protocol at the highest possible level because I'm a hero on my quest. God's gave me a chance to practice my philosophy. Long, winding answer now, but we've got to embrace the fact it's supposed to be hard. Then we use those challenges. Ryan Holiday, obstacle is the way style. The obstacle becomes the way, it becomes the fuel for your fire if you use it appropriately. And now I'm going to shut up again. Take us wherever you want to go, but you're getting me fired up.
I love it. Well, there's been places in our lives, both of our lives, I know in many of our lives, where it gets hard and it's an indication that it's an opportunity to course correct. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can speak to that and knowing that, you know what, this is the end of this cycle. I don't need to double down here just because it's hard doesn't mean it's the correct thing. Can we speak to that a little bit?
really, really important distinction. So, we've trained 10,000 coaches, 100 countries, and I do daily coaching. 1:01 p.m. every single day, I show up for everyone in our community and I coach someone. They'll say, hey, life is happening to me. It's really, really hard. And they want advice on the specific thing. Now, of course, there are times in which we leave the thing or the relationship or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I always start with the same exact question, which is, all right, cool. How are your fundamentals? Because if you are being pushed to make a decision like that, you better be connected to your best self. And again, eudaimonia means good soul. So the ancient Greeks and Stoics believed you had a guiding spirit, your daimon. The Romans called it your genius. Everyone had it. It wasn't you are a genius. Everyone had a genius or a daimon, a guiding spirit. Your job in life, Desmond Tutu, Richard Rohr, the great Franciscan monk says, just plug in. You're the little light bulb that's experiencing life, but you want to connect to the divine, force. Ken Wilber would say the same basic thing. So your job in general, and especially when you are getting your butt kicked, is to slow down and do the simple things that allow you to create a really clear communication channel between your best self and your little self. Rather than daimon, the diminutive of daimon is demon. So it's virtue, daimon, vice, demon. We each have those voices in our head. The question is, which one is driving the show? Because if you're following the demon, good luck. If you slow down, and again, this is where to conquer any challenge, and mine are different than yours. Right now, I know you're facing challenges. I'm, of course, facing challenges. Everyone is. Independent of the specific tactical decisions, we want to dominate our protocol. So when I say double down, it wasn't double down on that thing that maybe I shouldn't double down on. It's no. I'm going to double down on making sure that the best version of myself is showing up. And again, it's silly things. At the time, I was meditating for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. I'm eating clean. My protocol went up at that time, not down. And that's an important thing that the old me would not have done. I'm going to bed right when I say I'm going to go to bed. I'm moderating my tech inputs. I'm not blowing my consciousness up. I'm trying to be a good husband and a good father. In those moments in which I used to break and I was fragile, I want to become anti-fragile. The opposite of fragile is anti-fragile. And it's exhilarating when we make that algorithmic shift. And the decision that your daimon counsels you on might be leave that job, that relationship, or whatever. But you can't make that wise decision from my vantage point alone. You need to connect to the best version of yourself. And again, paradoxically, you do it via the most mundane, unsexy, simple fundamentals that help you feel alive and connected.
My big takeaway from that is who's answering the question. If I'm thinking about making a big change in my life to leave or stay, I want to have the best version of me there, the core self as much as possible, the deepest wisdom available, instead of the reactive part of me that's exhausted and is poorly resourced. So it's my job to make sure that I'm bringing the best version of me to that significant conversation, and then be able to lean in on that and say, okay, from this perspective, how do I want to approach this challenge, instead of I'm tired, I'm over this crap, I'm out. And
screw
of course,
it. And then you're showing up, and everything becomes. The joke I have is, you invite the circus into town. So then the clown show comes up, and hey, yeah, I'm going to go do this and this and this. Right. And again, everybody knows that's not the time to do that. But if we can muster just a little bit more of the self-mastery and discipline to practice a little bit more, or a lot more intently and aggressively, it's weird, right? Because it's not easy, but it becomes more effortless. And this is the ancient Chinese philosophers. Wu Wei, effortless action, was actually effortless, virtuous action. It was effortlessly expressing the best version of yourself, where these guys didn't need to work at it. So again, I'm not working at it now. My basal ganglia is programmed, not all the time, but 80% of the time, it would be harder for me to not do the thing that used to be impossible to do than to do the right thing. So Confucius, Lao Tzu, these guys, that's what they were trying to do, was cultivate this ability to effortlessly show up as your best self, to live with virtue, to live with arete. And then when you do that, you have what they called moral charisma, that I call soul force, which is the seventh objective, that we all have the same superpower. You right now, you have this sense, and why people come to you is there's a sense of integrity between what you say is important to you and what you're doing. You are showing up, not perfectly, but more and more consistently as your best self. And the ancient Chinese philosophers trained the ancient Chinese leaders because they all wanted that, because we're neurologically programmed to follow people like that. So again, as you do these things, you'll still have challenges. Hopefully they'll get bigger, frankly, and more frequent, because you're taking on bigger challenges and you're capable of dealing with them more gracefully. And people want to follow you, whether that's your clients or your colleagues or your supervisors will admire you, whatever, your sibling, your spouse, your kids, etc. They'll feel something in you. Yeah, is exciting. And again, now we're jumping around to basically everything that we've talked about and framed up in the book, but this is it.
Yeah. When I work with other coaches, that's where I drum it home is like, our job is to tune ourselves to that frequency. Our job is to invite people into that. It's not so much that we have to have the answers for them, but we just invite them into that space with us, and then they can access it for themselves. And then we don't have to do the heavy lifting. When they can access that deeper part of themselves, they can then drive their lives or find their way in that. But it's our job to create that environment and that container for them to meet us there.
And to be the demonstration of it. So the way that we frame it up for our coaches is client number 0 is you always. And as you know, with our program, you have to do the things that we say, theory to practice. So you need to meditate every day for 11 minutes if you want to be a certified heroic coach. I'm not aware of any program that challenges the coaches to actually do the things. It's all theory. We got to move from theory to practice. But you are the embodiment of the ideas and ideals that you're. The only reason someone pays you or any coach to do something is you have something that they want more of. Perfect. So be the embodiment of that. And then absolutely what we're talking about is the same exact thing. Help them create the space through your demonstration and through your humble inquiry, where I rarely give tactical prescriptive advice. I always do what I described, which is, how are your fundamentals? Oh, you know what? I'm still eating this and that. All right, well, what do you think you might be able to do to get a little bit more energized? All right, well, my sleep, I think I can dial in. I think I can do this. And then I say, all right, well, see if you can get a good night of sleep tonight, and ask your daimon tomorrow morning, after you get up, don't blow up your brain with emails and texts, goosebumps, ask your daimon what they think. And then do that. Not once in a while, but consistently. And let's see what we can chip away at that. And then the follow-on question is, well, what do you want? At the end of the day, the move from victim to hero is really simple. The victim complains about everything. It's not working the way I want, and they're critical, they're gossiping, they get cynical, perhaps even nihilistic, and boom, it all sucks and everyone sucks. All right, perfect. Victim to hero is, what do I want? We call it targeted thinking. So in any given moment, literally, and in big life decisions, the question is, well, what do you want? Relationship, job, et cetera, wise, what do you want? If you could wave a wand and create your ideal, what would it look like? And then what do you need to do to get it? What price are you going to need to pay? What behavior do you need to engage in right now in order to hold that tension and move toward your idea? The data in as you take action. Your plan won't survive contact with the enemy, as the military says, but evolve and continue to come back to, what do I want? What do I need to do to get it? And my number one target every day is getting my own soul force activated. And again, moment to moment to moment, then I can show up with you right now, with other big decisions I'm making throughout, the days and weeks, as I strive to go out and do something meaningful.
Let's come back to the book, which is not just a collection of big ideas, but it's actually the culmination of what you've been learning that actually works. You have the app, you have this community. I'd love to hear some stories about some of the ways that people have turned their lives around or made big shifts as a result of actually doing the things that you talk about in this book.
For some reason, we're able to affect people who are really performing at the most elite levels, who are into this and who feel my intensity and passion, like, damn, okay, cool. Yeah, let's go. And take them from already extraordinary performance to the next level in the sports, in the military, executives, et cetera. But what really moves me is the people who wanted to end their lives, who had plans to end their lives. And we have a couple of videos that come up in particular of a couple of women who, I was going to kill myself, one woman said. I had the plan, the vultures were going to come get me, no one was ever going to find me. Goosebumps, tears in my eyes. Wow. And then somehow she found me in the work, and it gave her the stability. to move through. And I talk a lot about my own challenges. I wanted to end my life, as you know, 25 years ago. That was all I could think about. So I know what it feels like to grow up in a household with an alcoholic father, whose father was an alcoholic who killed himself. My joke is I lost the environmental and genetic lottery on that one. Perfect. I know what it feels like to want to end my own life. But I also know what it feels like to feel this. Highs and lows still, because I'm human. Everyone is. You're going to have those things. But I know what it feels like to create a life of deep meaning. I know what it feels like to feel like I never could. And I have a decent sense of what I did in order to step it out. But that's what strikes me is the heart opening. Why I work so hard, dude. Let's go. Train people to show up as their best selves. Help people across that spectrum. And those are some of the stories that really impact me. Drive me. I mean, to ground our ambition in something bigger than ourselves, to have our kids in mind when we're making decisions, which is my biggest challenge, is being the guy that I want to be, integrated for my two kids, 11 and 6, thinking of these people we're serving, and then going all in unapologetically. Dude, yeah, I mean, you're in the book, you're the longest passage in the book. I could have paraphrased it. Hey, I could have paraphrased it, right? I'm like, all right, well, my buddy Tripp said this. Let me give you my take on it. I'm like, no, Tripp said it's so great. Well, here you go. Here's what Tripp has to say. So you hold the intensity with the fact that you're not that big of a deal. It just, none of this stuff simultaneously matters at all. And nothing is more important than us showing up in this moment, especially today with the circus that is our world as it continues to go next level in horror show and tragedy. Just when you think it reached its apex of terror, literal and metaphorical. That's what I think of with the community.
Yeah, I had a chance to meet a lot of folks in your community. I've interacted with your community on the coaching calls, and it's so exciting to hear people's stories and how you've inspired them and how the community as a whole, just everybody's lifted up from it. It was really inspiring. So I'm curious because we haven't had a conversation on here since the app was launched. And, when we were having those conversations, we were talking about your process of raising the money and how it was impacting you individually as in your own growth. Just to kind of get a nutshell, like what has been the impact on you since the launch of the app and now into the launch of this book? What's been going on underneath the hood for you?
Growth. We mentioned the letter that I got 2 days before the app launched. And of course, the market's completely changed. It went from literally historically frothy capital liquid markets and raising money to one of the worst. At the same time that we received this letter, we navigated that process. Usually takes 24 months. We did it in 8 months. The firm that we retained, who's the best in the world at doing this stuff, hired me to keynote their partner talk after we went through the process, because they were juxtaposing emails they got laced with F-bombs and how we were showing up. And I was trying to work the protocol, anti-fragile confidence style. But anyway, that was fun. Gave me an opportunity to triple down on my protocol. We launched the training side of the app, as I discussed right before we got that letter. And then we just launched the social private beta of that literally last month. But the thing that's salient for me is, and again, the app, to recap, is we help you get clarity on who you are at your best in your energy, work, and love. We help you create identities. Identity literally means repeated beingness. So you have a self-image and identity that you will never outperform. And you want to get clear on who you are at your best. You want to identify the virtues you embody when you are at your best. Then you want to know the do and don'ts that you do and you will do consistently. So energy, work, and love, identities, virtues, and your top 3 targets. And the thing is, it's hard to have a bad day if you know who you are at your best and you do the few things, simple things, energy, work, and love. You'll still have highs and lows, but you're not going to go off the rails if after you have a kind of bad day, you recommit. So anyway, that's the app, and it makes it more explicit what you're specifically going to do. So for example, in love, I look for moments to connect with my kids without the phone, with my wife, and with my mother-in-law, who spends part of her time we have a little tiny house on our property. So I had the app. She didn't know I had the app. And I literally was in the morning saying, all right, well, I want to make sure I create a moment of awesome with my kids and with her. She's here. Now I'm a reasonably introverted guy who can get stuck in my head, and it's easy for me to miss opportunities to connect with her and with my kids. So I use the app to commit in the morning. Takes me seconds to commit, whatever. I'm going to find a moment with Nama is what the kids call her, right? So I'm doing it. 3 days in, my mother-in-law says, goosebumps, tears in my eyes, something's to my wife. Something's different with Brian. It's just amazing. I'm a decent guy, Tripp, but I can be that guy who's just busy, and I'm just doing my thing. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, that moment was one of the most profound moments for me that gave me confidence that we've got something. We've had science that's proven if you use the app, depending on the study, you'll be 23% more energized than if you don't. If you hit one target in the app, that's a profound thing that we've done with people that have never heard of me, 30 days in, et cetera. We can move people scientifically from the 53rd percentile to the 70th. 53rd percentile is average, what are we by definition, to the 70th, normal, who'd never heard of me before in 30 days. So I'm really, really proud of that. It's affected me deeply. I hit 101 targets. I do the things we're talking about. I know who I am at my best and what I do. And I do those things every single day. And it's given me a sense of, that calm confidence and that anti-fragile let's go, and a groundedness and a joy that's been exhilarating. And now we're really excited about the social. I think that's going to be the most powerful thing where, your community can connect with one another and with you. Outside of TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter or X or whatever it is now, what if we had a social platform? We're sharing these ideas. You're seeing my protocol. I see your protocol. Your community sees other people's protocols. Our coaches are using and will use the app to coach their clients. One of our guys coaches some of the most elite sports professionals in the world. Well, he's using Heroic. Who are you? Energy, work, and love. Before coaching sessions, he's looking at whether they did the things they said they would do. It's like a habit tracking tool, but it's virtues based and all the other things we've talked about. Mm-hmm. So that's fun. And I think this time next year is going to be super cool as the social platform launches. And then again, we hope the book is helpful and just easier to let people know more about who I am beyond a podcast chat like this. The app's a bit abstract and it's a very concrete way of, hey, people read books. Well, here you go. 451 of my all-time favorite ideas that will hopefully help you move from theory to practice and come closer to activating your heroic potential, as we say.
Right on, brother. Well, by the time this our conversation comes out, the book will be available. And it's a great addition to everything that you've created. And I just want to say that you continue to inspire me, especially when it comes to how you deal with challenge. I remember all that happening that you discussed a while back. And I was just like, wow, that would just be a real punch. And it all happening right before you head up on stage. I was there and watching you go through that challenge and manage all of that stuff and all of the people, all the energy, knowing that you're not quite the people guy that some others are, and just really appreciating your ability to lean in during that time, because I think it would have devastated most folks.
Dude, just I appreciate that. And just to give concrete numbers to it, I was raising $15 million. So I had built the entire business assuming I'd raise $15 million. I had that money committed. I had $5 million in. I literally signed contracts, built the business to support that. And it wasn't there because the letter we got precluded us, or it prevented us from doing the fundraising. So I had to go rebuild the entire business in that moment. And I want to be really clear. It was hard. I did the hard work to show up. But I tattooed my body with heroic, dude. And there were moments there where I'm like, what did you do, man? Like it was potentially catastrophic. And the metaphor was we're on Everest, huge storm. People got blown off the mountain, supplies were gone. What are we going to do? I nearly wept more than once. I mean, it was hard. And yet I practiced the philosophy I harder than ever. I mean, there was no going off the rails for me. And this is, again, what gives me so much, again, at the risk of being a modest, personal confidence that I can handle whatever life throws at me. Anything that comes up, there'll be harder personal things, losing people and all those things, but whatever, dude. Like, nothing is going to be harder than that entrepreneurially at similar levels, et cetera. But then most importantly, it works. These ideas at the highest level, idiosyncratically expressed, work. And it's not because it's me. It's ancient wisdom, modern science. And as you know, and we've talked about so many times, I read, I don't know how many books. Like, this is just, It's what everyone has said across all time. Live with virtue, be your best self. Here's how. And again, feel blessed to be in dialogue with you to bring these ideas to life and appreciate your kind words. And it's me trying to do the thing that we talked about. Be client number 0. Try to practice your own philosophy idiosyncratically as intensely as I am, with you being all calm and cool and me being me. It's like, it's a cool opportunity for us to show up as us and demonstrate different pathways that are embodying the same ideas to create better, more noble lives and be of service in a profound way,
Yeah. This makes me want to go back to our very first conversation. You were in Bali, and I remember hearing the rain in the background, and you'd packed a trunk of 100 books, and you were going to do 100 notes. And that was a chunk at that time. I don't know if you remember that, guy. It makes me want to go back and listen to that and revisit where you were at that time, because it's this path and this story has been extraordinary.
That's so funny. Two of my buddies who are former baseball players make fun of me. I'll make sure they listen to this, and they would have anyway. But they're like, dude, they use words I don't use in public. Yeah, I've been told that I've evolved in a few different ways. So.
I did think you were a bit weird. You were the only guy I've ever met that went to Bali to read books and not surf. I was like, wow, that's strange.
Who is this guy? Well, that part of it I'm cool with, but just trying to master the craft and get more comfortable communicating all those things. But yeah, love you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for doing you, and always great to connect.
Yeah, brother. Much love to you. Give your kids a tackle from me and a hug to Alexander.
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.